Inside the walls, Marcus Hale arrived in chains before sunrise. The transport van rolled through the final security gate of Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, its headlights cutting across the towering concrete walls and razor wire. Guards stood waiting behind reinforced glass, their eyes fixed on the vehicle like they already knew trouble had arrived. Riverbend wasn't built for ordinary criminals. It was where Tennessee sent the worst of the worst. Men whose crimes had shocked entire communities, men who could not be trusted anywhere else. When the van doors opened, Hale stepped out slowly. His face showed no fear, only curiosity. He looked up at the walls, the guard towers, the steel gates that locked behind him one by one. For most inmates, that moment felt like the end of freedom. For Hale, it looked like the beginning of something else. Inside intake, correctional officers processed him quickly, fingerprints, photographs, medical screening. Then they escorted him down a narrow hallway where the echo of footsteps bounced off the concrete. One guard leaned toward another and whispered, "That's the guy from the highway shooting." The other guard nodded, "Yeah. And apparently he's not the worst one in here." Because deeper inside the prison, another inmate was already waiting. Daniel Crow. Crow had spent years building a reputation behind those walls. Not through reckless violence, but through patience. He observed everything: guard routines, inmate alliances, security weaknesses. And more importantly, he knew how to make people listen. When Hale arrived in the cell block, Crow noticed immediately. The block went quiet. In prison, silence meant something. It meant everyone was watching. Hale stepped into his new cell, the heavy door slamming shut behind him with a metallic echo that rattled the entire corridor. Across the tire, Crow leaned against the bars of his cell and studied the newcomer. Two dangerous men, two different kinds of predators. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, investigators were still trying to understand what Marcus Hale had been planning before his arrest. Detective Laura Bennett sat inside a small evidence room reviewing the contents of the storage unit that had been discovered days earlier: weapons, tactical gear, handwritten notes. But it was the notebook that bothered her most, the list of names. Several belonged to inmates currently locked inside Tennessee prisons. Others belonged to correctional officers. It didn't make sense. Why would a man planning attacks on police also be collecting information about people inside a maximum security prison? Bennett noticed something she had missed before. Some of the inmate names had symbols written next to them. Small markings, circles, triangles, arrows. She compared the names to the state prison database, and that's when her stomach dropped. Every name marked with a symbol belonged to an inmate known for violent leadership inside prison gangs, including Daniel Crow. Back at Riverbend, the tension inside the cell block grew stronger with each passing day. Marcus Hale adjusted to prison life quickly, too quickly. He watched, listened, studied the rhythm of the prison. Which guards were strict, which ones were careless. One evening during recreation hour, Hale finally crossed paths with Daniel Crow face to face. The prison yard was surrounded by towering fences topped with razor wire. Armed guards watched from elevated towers. Crow approached calmly. "You're the one they've been talking about," he said. Hale looked back at Crow. "You ever wonder," Hale said quietly, "how secure this place really is?" Crow smiled slightly. "Every day." For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Crow leaned closer. "You didn't come here by accident, did you?" Hale's expression didn't change, but the silence that followed said everything. 3 days later, Detective Bennett finally received a phone call. The voice on the other end was nervous. "Something's happening inside Riverbend." The informant lowered his voice. "They're not trying to survive prison. They're trying to take control of it." Inside Riverbend, the atmosphere had already begun to shift. Inmates suddenly started changing sides. Then one night, Officer Sarah Mitchell discovered something hidden inside a maintenance corridor. At first, it looked like nothing more than a loose panel in the wall. But when she pulled it open, she found something that made her heart start pounding. A detailed map of the prison's internal corridors, security checkpoints, guard shift rotations, and escape routes. But the most terrifying part was the names written in the corner. Marcus Hale, Daniel Crow, and two chilling words written in red ink. Whatever these inmates were planning, it had already begun. The alarm started at 2:17 a.m. inside Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. The shrill emergency siren shattered the silence of the night shift. Red lights flashed, across the concrete corridors as correctional officers rushed toward the cell blocks. At first, the control room believed it was a malfunction. A sensor had triggered in one of the maintenance tunnels beneath the prison. But within seconds, another alarm followed, then another. Doors began locking automatically across the facility. Something was very wrong. Officer Sarah Mitchell stood frozen, clutching the map she had discovered earlier. The map was marked Phase 1. Her instincts told her the alarms weren't random. They were part of the plan. Inside the control center, guards scrambled to monitor cameras. Then one monitor flickered and went black. Another followed. Then 3 more. Someone was interfering with the cameras. Mitchell already knew who had been studying those systems. Marcus Hale, Daniel Crow. Across the prison, inside cell block C, a quiet tension had been building. The moment the alarms began, several cell doors opened simultaneously. It wasn't through force, but access. Someone had manipulated the locking system. Confusion spread faster than the guards could react. Inmates poured into the corridor. It wasn't a chaotic riot, it was organized. And that terrified the officers more than anything else. In the recreation corridor, Marcus Hale stepped out of the shadows. He moved calmly, as if the entire prison collapsing was exactly what he expected. Daniel Crow approached from the opposite side. For a moment, the 2 men simply looked at each other. No words were needed. Crow spoke first. "The tunnels are open," Hale nodded. "And the cameras disabled." For years, Crow had quietly studied the prison's maintenance systems. Back in the control room, Officer Mitchell watched with horror. Cell Block C was no longer secure. The warden grabbed the emergency radio. "Full lockdown protocol. All units respond immediately." But the response was slower. Security gates were jammed. Electronic locks refused to respond. Mitchell looked down at the map. It led from the maintenance corridor to a service tunnel beneath the yard. This wasn't just a riot. They were escaping. In the underground tunnel, the air smelled of rust and damp concrete. Marcus Hale walked ahead, flashlight in hand. Behind him, inmates followed silently. Crow paused and listened. Footsteps echoed faintly above them. "We don't have much time." Hale stopped, his expression calm despite the sirens. "You know," Hale said quietly, "most people think prison walls are unbreakable. They're only strong ... if the people inside believe they are." Just as Hale reached for the door handle, a voice echoed through the tunnel. "Don't move." Flashlights burst into the darkness. Armed tactical officers flooded the corridor. Rifles raised. Hale slowly raised his hands. The escape attempt was over. By sunrise, Riverbend had returned to lockdown. Hale and Crow were transferred to separate high-security wings. The prison had survived the night, barely. Investigators later found something chilling in Hawley's notebook. The uprising had never been the final objective, it had only been a test. A way to prove that even the most secure prison could be shaken from within. The most dangerous inmates aren't always the ones who act with violence. Sometimes, they're the ones patient enough to wait, to plan, and to remind the world that even the strongest walls can crack. If this story left you wondering what other secrets exist behind prison walls, stay subscribed. Some of the darkest stories are still waiting to be uncovered.